In the remote, glacier-carved fjords of Alaska, there is a place the native Tlingit people have long warned against. They call it Kii, the Bay of Lost Voices. Modern Naps know it as Sentinel Point, a small, isolated fishing village that, in the autumn of 2021, fell completely and inexplicably silent. For 3 weeks, no radio transmissions, no satellite phone calls, not even a single emergency signal. When a Coast Guard cutter finally breached the dense, perpetual fog bank that had settled around the bay, they found the village perfectly preserved but utterly empty. The homes were tidy, tables set for meals that were never eaten, and boats bobbed gently at the docks. The only thing missing was the people. And the sound. Asterisk, the official report cited a mass hysteria event, but the details were buried. The sole piece of evidence was a hard drive recovered from the village's weather station, which had been manually set to record continuously for its final 48 hours. The audio, now classified, reveals the truth. It wasn't a disease or a predator that took the 87 souls of Sentinel Point. It was an atmospheric anomaly the researchers dubbed the Stillness, a perfect, invasive silence that doesn't just mask sound, but consumes it. And worse, it consumes the source of the sound. The recordings are a slow, terrifying descent into madness and oblivion, capturing the villagers' final, whispered moments as they realized the very act of speaking was making them disappear. The stillness didn't come to their town. It slowly, methodically, folded the town into itself. Asterisk, the change was subtle at first. Elias, the village's 68-year-old weatherman, noted it in his log. October 14th, 5:17 a.m. The bay is ... quiet. No gulls. No lapping waves. Eerie. He'd lived in Sentinel Point his whole life and had never experienced anything like it. The ambient noise of the world had simply vanished, replaced by a dense, cottony silence that felt heavy on the eardrums. He mentioned it to young Liam, the school teacher, when he came for his morning coffee. Probably just a weather inversion, Elias. It'll pass. But it didn't pass. By noon, the entire village was on edge. Conversations were hushed, as if speaking too loudly felt wrong, a violation of some unspoken rule. Asterisk, it was Liam who discovered the first concrete proof something was wrong. He was trying to call his sister in Juneau on his satellite phone. The call connected, but he couldn't hear her, and she couldn't hear him. He played a voicemail she'd left him the week before. The cheerful message was now garbled, her voice stretched and distorted, being pulled into a faint, roaring silence at the end of each word. That's when Old Man Hemming, who was nearly deaf, started shouting from his porch. "Where is everyone? The birds are gone." He was pointing at the sky, his voice the loudest thing in the world. And as the last echo of his shout faded, Hemming himself seemed to blur at the edges. He took a step forward, his mouth open to form another word, and then he was simply not there. The space where he had stood was empty. The silence had taken its first payment. Asterisk panic, when it came, was silent. There was no screaming, only wide-eyed terror and frantic, gesticulating hands. The village gathered in the community hall, their footsteps making no noise on the wooden floor. Liam, trying to take charge, wrote on a large whiteboard, "IT feeds on sound. Stay quiet." It was a hypothesis, but it was the only one that fit. Hemming had been the loudest, and he was the first to go. They developed a system of crude sign language and passed notes. The world outside the hall's windows was a surreal, muted painting. The wind blew, but made no rustle in the pines. A dog ran past. Its bark completely swallowed the moment it left its throat. Asterisk, the horror truly set in when a child, little Anya, began to cry. Her mother, Marta, clutched her tightly, desperately trying to smother the sobs against her chest. But the sound, tiny and pitiful, was being drawn out. They could all see it, a faint, shimmering distortion in the air, like heat haze, moving from the child towards the ceiling. With each sob, Anya's form became fainter. Marta's own silent tears streamed down her face as she rocked her daughter, who was slowly vanishing from her very arms. After a final, hiccuping sob, Anya was gone. Marta was left holding an empty, silent space. A note was passed through the crowd, its message stark and horrifying. It doesn't just take the sound. It takes the maker. The stillness was among them, an invisible acoustic predator, and they were its prey. Asterisk, they couldn't stay in the hall. The sound of their breathing, the rustle of their clothes, the frantic scratching of pens, it was a collective death sentence. They had to disperse, to minimize the acoustic footprint. Liam led a small group back to the schoolhouse, moving with the exaggerated care of bomb disposal experts. Every footfall was a calculated risk. They found Elias there, hunched over his recording equipment. He had wired microphones throughout the village and was broadcasting the silence on a loop through the town's PA system, a desperate attempt to feed the stillness a bland, constant diet of nothing. He scribbled a note to Liam. Maybe if it's full, it will leave. Asterisk, for a few hours, it seemed to work. The oppressive feeling lessened. But then, the speakers began to fail, one by one. Each time a speaker crackled and died, the silence that rushed in to fill the void felt hungrier, denser. They were running out of distractions. Outside, they saw the consequences of failure. A man trying to siphon gas for a generator accidentally knocked over a metal can. The clatter was like a thunderclap in the void. He didn't even have time to look surprised before he was erased from reality. The gasoline came clattering to the ground a second time in perfect, absolute silence. The stillness was learning. It was no longer just taking the sounds they made. It was anticipating them, drawn to the potential of noise like a shark to blood in the water. Their world was shrinking to the space between their own heartbeats. Hope died with the last speaker. The village was now completely at the mercy of the stillness. People began to break. One woman, unable to bear the terror, simply stood up and screamed, a long, raw sound that was consumed in an instant, taking her with it. It was a swift, clean end compared to what was coming. Liam realized with dawning horror that the stillness was not just a force. It was intelligent. It was hurting them. The shimmering distortions in the air were now more frequent, corralling the survivors towards the center of the village, the dock. Asterisk, it was then that Elias made a decision. He was old, his lungs were weak, and every breath was a struggle he could no longer afford. He looked at Liam, at the remaining few dozen faces, pale with terror. He pointed to his boat, the sea serpent, then to himself, and then made an explosive motion with his hands. He was going to make a sound so loud, so catastrophic, it would satiate the entity, maybe even break its hold, just long enough for the others to escape by boat. Before Liam could stop him, Elias ran. He didn't try to be quiet. His footsteps were gunshots in the silence. He leaped onto his boat, fired up the engine. The roar was a physical blow and slammed the throttle. The boat shot out into the bay, the engine's deafening noise a beacon. The stillness converged on it, the air thickening and warping around the vessel. For a moment, it worked. The pressure in the village lifted. And then, halfway across the bay, the sea serpent Elias and the colossal sound of its engine were silently, neatly, wiped from existence. Asterisk, Elias's sacrifice bought them time, but not freedom. The stillness returned, more patient than before. The survivors, now down to less than 20, huddled in the cold storage locker of the fish processing plant. The thick insulation dampened what little sound they made. It was here, in the near-perfect silence, that they began to hear the whispers. They were faint, layered, a chorus of fragmented voices. Help so cold. Can you hear? They were the voices of the taken Hemming, Anya, the others. The stillness wasn't just storing their sound. It was playing it back, teasing them with the ghosts of their neighbors. Asterisk, the whispers were a weapon, designed to break their resolve, to make them answer. Liam clamped his hands over his ears, but the sound came from inside his own head. Next to him, a woman named Sarah mouthed her daughter's name in response, a whisper that sounded just like her. The moment the name left her lips, silent though it was, Sarah was gone. The whispers were a trap. The entity was using their own memories, their own love and grief, against them. It was learning to mimic, to lure. In the oppressive dark of the locker, surrounded by the phantom voices of his friends, Liam felt his own sanity beginning to fray. The only way to survive was to become as unfeeling and silent as the void that hunted them. He had to forget he was human. Asterisk days bled together in the silent, cold dark. They had no food, and the cold was seeping into their bones. The whispers were a constant torture. One of the men, a fisherman named Carl, could no longer take the thirst. He spotted a forgotten bottle of soda under a shelf. The temptation was too great. With shaking hands, he slowly, carefully, began to twist the cap. The sound of the breaking plastic seal was a tiny, crisp crack. It was the loudest thing Liam had ever heard. Carl's eyes went wide with terror and a strange, fleeting relief. He never got to take a sip. He and the bottle were erased between one heartbeat and the next. The rule was absolute. Any sound, for any reason, meant oblivion. Asterisk, his final death broke the last of their spirit. There would be no brave last stand, no clever escape. They were waiting to die, to be picked off one by a stray cough, a sob, the gurgle of a hungry stomach. Liam looked at the faces of the few who remained. They were hollowed out, ghosts already. He made a decision. He wouldn't wait for a mistake. He took out his notebook and wrote a final message, then pointed to the door. He was going to lead them out, not to escape, but to meet their end on their feet, under the sky, rather than cowering in the dark. They nodded, their eyes empty. They filed out of the locker, a funeral procession walking towards the silent, gray town, ready to offer themselves to the hunger that surrounded them. Asterisk, as they walked through the ghost town, Liam noticed something new. The shimmering distortions in the air were no longer random. They were flowing in a specific direction, like iron filings drawn to a magnet. They were all being pulled towards the town's old lighthouse. That was the source. The stillness wasn't a blanket over the town. It was emanating from a single fixed point. The lighthouse, for over a century a beacon of warning, had become the heart of the silence. Asterisk, a desperate, final plan formed in Liam's mind. If it had a source, it could be destroyed. He gestured to the others, pointing at the lighthouse and mimed throwing something. He led them to the public works shed, where they found what they needed: old sticks of dynamite used for avalanche control. Their hands trembled as they prepared the charges. It was the most dangerous thing they had ever done, a ballet of absolute silence with high explosives. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of their clothing could be their end. They armed the charges with a silent, pressure-triggered fuse. They wouldn't be the ones to make the sound. The entity itself would, when it took them. Their final act would be to force it to consume a sound so violent it would hopefully destroy the source. It was a suicide bomb made of silence. They approached the lighthouse, a ring of living ghosts carrying their own destruction. The door was open, and inside was not a room, but a nexus of the anomaly. The air was a solid, shimmering wall of silent energy, and at its center, suspended in the middle of the room, was a pulsating, black sphere hole in reality. The whispers were deafening here. a cyclone of lost voices. Liam could see faces forming and dissolving in the shimmering air. Elias, Anya, Carl, they were all here, trapped in this single silent point. Asterisk, there was no time for goodbyes. Liam looked at the others, and they all nodded. This was it. As one, they stepped forward into the lighthouse. The moment they crossed the threshold, the stillness reacted to their presence. It was a passive entity, but their movement into its core was a provocation. The air tightened around them, the pressure becoming immense. Liam took one last look at the world outside, then turned and threw the satchel of dynamite directly at the pulsating black sphere. He didn't hear it land. The act of throwing it, the shift of his weight, the rush of air past the bag, it was enough. The stillness consumed the kinetic energy, the potential sound of the action. Liam saw the others around him begin to fade, their forms unwinding into strands of light and sound that were sucked into the sphere. He felt a pulling sensation starting at his fingertips. He wasn't afraid. He took a final, deep, silent breath and let it out. Asterisk, the pressure trigger on the dynamite, a purely mechanical device, was activated by the satchel hitting the sphere. It was a simple click. In any other place, it would have been inaudible. Here, in the heart of absolute silence, it was the Big Bang. The stillness rushed to consume it, to erase this impertinent noise. It focused its entire being on that single, tiny sound. And in doing so, it consumed the dynamite. All of it. At once. Asterisk, the resulting implosion was not heard, but felt across dimensions. The black sphere convulsed, straining to contain the catastrophic energy of an explosion it had instantly silenced. It swelled, distorted, and then, like an overfilled balloon, it ruptured. But it didn't explode outward with sound and fury. It collapsed inward. The lighthouse, the vortex, the sphere, and the last remnants of the villagers were pulled into a single, infinitely small point of non-existence. Then, nothing. A perfect, pristine silence settled over Sentinel Point. The anomaly was gone, having consumed the one thing powerful enough to destroy it. A sound so vast, it could only be created by its own paradoxical nature. It had died of a sonic overdose. The fight was over. The Bay of Lost Voices had claimed its last victim, and finally, it was quiet. Asterisk, the Coast Guard found nothing. No bodies, no struggle, no explanation. The case was closed. But the story doesn't end there. The hard drive from the weather station was smuggled out by a junior officer haunted by what he heard. Copies of the Sentinel Point recording now exist in dark corners of the internet. Those who listen to the full, unedited 48 hours report strange phenomena. First, the world around them grows quieter. Then, they start to hear whispers in the silence of their own homes. And eventually, they feel an irresistible pull to travel to remote, quiet places, deep forests, empty deserts, secluded bays. Asterisk, they are drawn to the silence because a fragment of the stillness survived. It wasn't destroyed, only shattered. It exists now as a conceptual virus, a meme carried on an audio file, seeking a new place to coalesce, to grow, to feed. It is patient. It knows that humanity, in its noisy, frantic existence, craves silence. And it will be there, waiting in the next quiet place, ready to offer its final, absolute peace. So the next time you find yourself in a silence that feels a little too deep, a little too heavy, be careful. You might not be alone, and the sound of your own heartbeat might be all the invitation it needs.